More moves are coming, as multiple reports indicate the Rangers may still be moving on from Kaapo Kakko and potentially Jacob Trouba. Fans are not happy with Chris Drury since free agency started, and we're going to break all of that down in this episode. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 80% of you watching our videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And there's tons of news coming out over the last couple of days. I'll have something out tomorrow about development camp because that's really exciting too. And a couple names we might actually mention in this video included in that. So that's going to be exciting. But let's focus on free agency and of course some trades, because it looks like Chris Drury might be exploring the trade market, which we talked about with the Riley Smith trade. There was some cost certainty there. So what's next for the New York Rangers? Well, there's a couple articles that have come out over the last couple of days from Vince, who's been great as well, and Phil, who's always on the ball covering the team as well. So thank you very much to those two guys. But this quote stood out to me, and we're going to start with it right away. I'm pretty sure they're dangling Kaapo Kakko and will pursue deals to possibly move him this summer. I think they're not thrilled with the offers that they've gotten so far, which is why he's still on the roster. And we're going to get into where he's kind of, penciled into the lineup for next season in just a second. But based on that, I'm a little bit surprised that they are keeping him because it doesn't really make sense. But if the deal is not right, then I guess, why trade him at this point, right? Maybe hold on to him. They were talking very highly of him. Peter Laviolette said, I still want to work with this player. Chris Drury said there's still something to this player. So it looks like they are kind of shopping him, but not actively. I guess he's on the trading block, but not actively in that way. So this was from Forever Blue Shirts, who have been great as well. Kaapo Kakko's future still up in the air with the New York Rangers, despite not being traded ahead of the draft or free agency. When you dive into the article, there are some really good tidbits about why he was not traded on the draft floor, right? So when you get into it, it's not entirely clear whether the Rangers held onto Kakko because they valued Emery with the number 30th pick or because they weren't impressed with the value of the trade offers. Vince seems to insinuate the latter. The fact that the former number 2 overall pick continues to get dangled might indicate that holding on to him at the draft wasn't necessarily a vote of confidence. It may just be a fact of the matter that, there isn't a great deal out there. And we saw a Jacob Chychrun trade that, wasn't great value either. And there's a lot of rumors behind that as well. So, if you're not going to get, you might not get equal value because, of course, this player is a former 2nd overall pick and hasn't really played up to that. You're not really going to get, exactly what you want. And it seems like Chris Drury, his price is pretty high on this player, but pretty interesting nonetheless. And then if you move forward in the article to Kakko, likely best slots in at right wing on the 3rd line. Now that one, this part stood out to me a little bit because there was a lot of talk from Peter Laviolette after the season where he said, this falls on me as well. It's not just the player. I didn't give the player the opportunity to succeed in his role. He's playing too far down the lineup. He's not playing with the players he should be playing with to be able to create and be creative like he normally is, or, to get to that next level. So he was taking a lot of the criticism and saying, a lot of it was on him too. But of course it's on the player. So the fact that this says, Kakko likely best slots, and of course this is just an estimate, right? On the right wing on the 3rd line. What are we doing? We're once again putting him on the 3rd line and going to play him with Brennan Othmann this season, who I'm going to have a video on tomorrow, but who looks pretty good. But where was the talk of putting him in the top 6? Maybe Riley Smith can move down, right? At that, retained salary, maybe he moves down. I thought Kaapo Kakko, if staying, was going to get a better opportunity to try and score. If that's not the case, then what is the point of hanging on to this player, right? Because then he's just going to, kind of be on the 3rd line and do what he's been doing the last couple of years. So don't understand that too much, right? I'm not saying give him away for free, but I don't understand that part. But we'll continue. With most of the name value right-wing options off the table, at least in terms of free agency, outside of Vladimir Tarasenko. This article is a little bit old. Obviously, Tarasenko signed in Detroit, and Daniel Sprong, who could be an option as well. It's far from a guarantee that there's a better 3rd-line option out there than Kakko, especially with his low-cost contract, which is true. That is true. $2.4 million, not bad for a 3rd-liner, but with everything that's been said from the GM, Chris Drury, and Peter Laviolette, you would hope that he would get a better opportunity if he's staying to play in the top 6. You would hope that's, obviously if he doesn't perform, take him off. But to start, I think you need to try something new. Anyway, they're probably sitting there and saying, okay, we're not necessarily going to rush to trade Kakko right now because as it looks right now, given the lineup, they kind of need him. And then Vince went on to add, I still think it's a possibility he gets traded, but I think the window that they would have liked to have that done is over the weekend at the draft. So clearly the time looks like it may have passed for a Kaapo Kakko trade, which is pretty interesting. It seems like they want to hang on to him. Just because the trade is not right, but if they hang on to him, it sounds like he might slot in again on the third line, which is not giving him a better opportunity. So of course it's a little bit on the player, but I think it's on the coaching staff and the GM as well, because they're not giving this player the greatest opportunity to succeed because they continue to put him in the same roles where he's not succeeding. So if you're going to hang on to him, I think he might have to play in the top six. Maybe Riley Smith moves down to the third line. I still think Riley Smith is top six potential, right? And I think maybe if you find something that meshes well in the lineup. You never know. Kakko could, play really well with Othman, let's say, right, on that third line or whatever it is next year. So, because Othman looks like he's probably going to end up making the team. But anyway, very interesting on the Kaapo Kakko front. Very interesting. And then General Manager Chris Drury, if General Manager Chris Drury is indeed set on moving on from the 23-year-old, which he's only 23, he's still relatively young, then perhaps he does so simply to open up a slot for an internal solution like Brennan Othman, which I think he might make the team anyway, or Brett Berard. It's worth noting that after starting at his natural left wing position with the Hartford Wolfpack in the AHL last season, Othman moved over to the right wing for the second half of the season. He finished second on the Wolfpack with 21 goals, 4 behind Berard. So Othman looks like he might be ready for the show, right? He's probably going to come in a third line position. Kakko's been here for a while. I think he needs a better opportunity. Maybe Riley Smith moves down. We don't know what the lines are going to look like closer to the season, right? We'll find that out later. But very interesting stuff. I just don't understand why I can't wrap my head around why you're going to hang on to a play. Why after the season you're going to say we have to give this player a better opportunity to play better, and then you're not going to do it. It seems like you're not going to do that, and then still hang on to him. That makes no sense to me. Either let him go. I'm not saying for nothing, but find a trade partner, let him go, and move on, or you give him a better opportunity in the top six, right? And if he doesn't succeed there in the top six, then it will not work out, right? Then So I think they have to give him one last opportunity if they're going to hang on to him. But if they do find a trade partner, then of course that is done. So there's a lot of fan outrage about this. But anyway, to move a little bit into the Jacob Trouba and the cap hit situation, the salary cap situation with the Rangers. That includes Kaapo Kakko as well. Without a Trouba move at this point, I'm done dissecting, but it's probably not happening. Any major adjustments are going to happen at the trade deadline, which I think Chris Drury is saving the salary cap space that he currently has for that reason. Not only for that reason, because he can get a rental at the trade deadline, you have to re-sign Shesterkin, right? And Shesterkin's camp, from the Post, New York Post, has been told that Shesterkin's camp is aiming for a contract under which the goaltender would start with a 14% of the cap, which would equate to $12.9 million. And I'm not saying he's not worth it, but that is a lot of cap space gone next season just like that. So have to look towards that as well. So, I would have liked Chris Drury to spend closer to, the max, but it looks like he might not be doing that, and I can't really blame him at this point. So a lot of fans are upset, right? Why be excited for next season? This team is not a Stanley Cup contender. Half of our defense is a half step behind. Our right wing, our first line right wing has signed somewhere else, I think he believes. So there's a lot, okay? Like, fans are not happy. There's a lot, and it's very hard for me to believe all Drury will do this offseason is trade for Smith and re-sign Lindgren and Schneider, which he also still has to do with some of the remaining cap. Even after he does that, they're going to have a lot of salary cap space. But again, I think he's saving that for the trade deadline or an in-season move or something like that, which is not the worst thing as well, because, if you find out Kakko isn't working out and you are giving him the opportunity, then maybe you do have to move on from that player, right? And maybe you get something in return and you have to take on salary, so it could work in the Rangers' favor. But pretty interesting nonetheless. I think with all the fireworks, all Rangers fans expected, to get this after the first couple of days of free agency, very underwhelming. I'm not going to lie. It's a little underwhelming, and I'm not sure if the team got significantly better. I do think there's pieces coming up, like I mentioned, in Othman, who will fit in very nicely next year, but I'm not sure the team got that much better or more experience, right? And maybe they're waiting for the trade deadline. And also they have to, make way for large contracts on the way next season. So it's going to be very interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should they keep Kaapo Kakko, give him a better opportunity? Should they move on from the player, right? What's happening with the Jacob Trouba situation? Do you like the fact that they're going to hang on to some salary cap space for an in-season trade or deadline move? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.